Beasts to writing the novel. Just chatting. I guess this is in real life. Since I'm doing this in real life. English, fighting addiction, better habits, writing, growth, practice, straight edge, 420. Done. Alright. What am I doing? I'm not inspired to write, but I took a nap. Therefore, my brain should be gooey and enough in the realm of the subconscious that I can at least get out a few fucking lines. That's better. Water with lemon, because that's supposed to help flush me out better. So, I guess I'm going to do what I do to try and get myself going. Just read off what I have. And then see if that doesn't get the ball rolling mentally. And if that doesn't work, I can pop it all into ChatGPT and see if that doesn't inspire me or motivate me a little bit. I know this isn't perfect. I still got edits to do on this first chapter. But bear with me. See if I can add anything to this today. I'm trying to make this morning thing, like early morning thing, but I've been sleeping kind of late. Which is good. It means I'm starting to get more sleep. But let's see. See if I can create anything worthy of the humanities. Let's see if I can touch the greatness of Oscar Wilde and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Jillian's Journey, Chapter 1. Still a working title. I don't know what the hell I'm calling this. Jillian sat atop a decadently dainty throne. The silver tendrils that composed the frame she rested could have been spun by spiders. They were so fine and distantly situated that it was only by a trick of light that they were visible at all. The cushion she sat on was thick and white. Stuffed with such soft down, Jillian felt she was rested upon a precipice of easy comfort that threatened to swallow her at any instant. I know my sentences are a little bit too wordy and need to be cut down better. While she was accustomed to being called pretty, she assumed this was simply because she was a princess, and those around her felt obligated to say so because princesses, as a rule, were expected to be pretty. Therefore, she was what they thought of as pretty. What Jillian saw in the mirror seemed to say otherwise as the deeper she peered into the reversal of herself, the more compounded flaws she discovered. Her nose, though cutely upturned as one would expect, was too round and broad. Her skin was smooth and unblemished but brown like the soil. Her eyes, too, despite being wide and bright, were just loamy pools of mud that glistened like a storm recently passed. Her hair was a tangled mass of dark knots without a single redeeming quality. Only the most merciless of nurses was tasked with attempting to straighten the mass. I don't like that. The most merciless, tangled mass of dark knots without a single redeeming quality. I mean, according to Stephen King, if it's a mass, it's a mass. Don't argue with yourself about it. He trusted to tame that jungle, nor was she some paper-thin wisp, despite how her meals were measured to try and take some of the plumpness from her cheeks. She wore corsets that squeezed like a serpent, tighter and tighter with every breath. She lived in a state of perpetual gnawing hunger, yet still her body would not shrink down to that magical princess size. Tonight, she was bedazzled and adorned like false treasure, all shine with no luster. Her powder blue dress had precious blue and white gems sewn into the trim and aligning the details. Under each cascading row of jewels was a lace trim made of the finest silk. Yeah, I used trim and trim again. That's some bad reps. Oh well. What little fabric was visible under the layers of weight that played lightly with the eyes was a simple material expertly woven that would have suited Jillian fine as a plain dress. Instead, it had been ballooned into a monstrosity of puffs and poofs to hide and alter her natural frame into that of a doll. Around and before the tiny stage her lofty throne sat upon milled the most extravagant and expensive wardrobes, all worn by individuals whose entire bearing seemed part of the same facade. Wordy, it's so wordy. I mean, books are wordy, but that's a lot of words. Each empty smile seemed fitted and stitched to the skull of the poor desperate soul wearing them. The most frightening smiles were the ones that seemed genuine and honest, because they were the smiles that seemed fueled by a malevolent, selfish hunger as they leered her way. The worst of these was the woman she had been forced to call mother. This lady, above all, reveled in the honesty of the malicious pride that stretched her mouth into revealing porcelain white teeth that were straight and sharp. These innocent colored guillotines added an extra fine edge to her cutting words. Every word either to or about the girl seemed to slice her so finely they would never be seen. The wound seemed to slice her so finely the wound could never be seen. Every insecurity was amplified by the echo of this cold woman's casual, lilting voice that could freeze Jillian like a sudden shifting of the wind. Her lips were as red as blood, due in equal parts to the red wine the kingdom was known for, and to her meticulously painted face that distorted her sharp, predatory features. This this queen of the castle was a stark contrast to Jillian, in that she was fair and thin, with brilliant yellow hair that shone like the sun, that fell straight and smooth down her long, slender, pale-skinned back. Her movements were lithe and graceful as her words, until the moment she would strike with some piercing remark that left Jillian feeling as helpless as a small animal in a raptor's talons. Seeing this frozen fear on the girl was the one thing that seemed to bring the vindictive queen a genuine smile, a smile that revealed the woman's boundless cruelty, a cruelty never revealed while the sun was still up, and the castle was alive with guests and diplomats. But at night, after long shadows had consumed the earth, her rage reverberated down the halls. She would scream at servants and guards, the king, and most often at Jillian herself. Jillian knew too well that the smiling, gleaming, Gentile face that the queen wore under her gaudy golden crown was the mask, and the wide, raging eyes of the angriest blue, set in a beet-red face that frothed spittle at the mouth while screaming out every imperfection she had perceived or heard rumor of throughout the day, was the real face of the queen. Wow, that is a long-ass sentence. Okay, but we're not here for editing, we're here for flow. I'm trying to keep going. She would scream until her own voice would crack under the abuse, and then she would turn violent. Of course, the queen hadn't always been this way. Once she was a lowly maidservant who had attended the previous queen, Jillian's true mother. In those days, she had been humble and kind. And after the former queen's passing, this once demure servant girl quickly worked her way into the king's bed. In Jillian's distant memory, it seemed the crown of the queen slipped off her mother's head and fell onto the Weasley usurper. When the former queen was alive, this pale imitator would reflect her sentiments so purely one could never doubt her innocence. Yet, when the queen passed, and her benevolent, kind light was gone, the shadows left in her place revealed the twisted, jagged lines of cruelty that had framed this borrowed radiance. Jillian suffered the abuse with a quiet dignity. Although the pale queen would rage ferociously, she could never bring herself to strike with a closed fist. Only a weak, soft, half-closed claw that would flail pathetically atop Jillian's head until she either cried out or the queen retreated, clutching her bruised hand. Jillian never forgot the initial smile that spread across the sub-queen's face. Why does it say place? That should clearly be face. Face. Bam. When she first realized she could get away with this abuse. Since that moment over a decade ago, Jillian had never seen a more genuine smile than that moment of cruel liberation. Now she sat, quietly poised as the perfect princess emptied almost entirely of herself, lest some spark of soul rise within her and ignite the queen's possessive... Again, not editing, checking for flow, but, you see little things that you might as well correct if you can remember how a keyboard works. Is that... No. Tired. Queen's Hellish Rage, which would be released as soon as the guests had left. And what a varied and almost comical collection of dignitaries there were to strut and posture before her. Each one was dressed in shimmering decadence to the degree that the sight of golden filigree had become as redundant as leaves on a tree. They paraded the hall, either dancing in wide, slow circles or simply milling about as they dined and drank while speaking in high, lofty tones, each meant to carry over the others. They came in all varieties of shapes, none of them attractive. Rather, they seemed like characters of excess. Some were short and wide, like a lack of height could be easily substituted for girth, and others were gaunt and haggard by a lack of definition. Other than gaudy fashion, they were all united by an ethereal disdain for each other. The guests would occasionally break free from the humdrum revelry to come bid well wishes to the guest of honor, Princess Gillian. The king and queen stood to either side like either guards or ticket vendors who greeted each pompous passerby with royal swagger. Even from behind, Gillian could sense their eyes lighting up at the potential prizes to be gleaned from these patrons. While they enjoyed the prestige, it was all too clear they were here for the profit. Trading Gillian's life and freedom for some grand show of handing her over to a fashionably late suitor she had never met. While she dreaded what fate might await her, she eagerly anticipated the moment she might pass through the castle gates, never to return. Another guest approached with a round, sweaty face. Well, that's clearly a new paragraph. Another guest approached with a round, sweaty face that leered hungrily as the porcine politician slowly bowed while eyeing her up and down in the motion. He was sweaty and bright red in the face, as the light dancing in the three stairs had winded his limited reserves, as so much of his bearing was engaged in digestion. That can be better. Princess, he stammered as he bowed again, his leer widening into an even grander gesture that Gillian perceived to be a mockery. He stammered as he bowed again, his leer widening into a grander gesture that Gillian perceived to be what it was. A mockery. The royal guardians behind and on either side beamed at the sign of fealty, knowing it was meant for them. This entire affair was less a presentation of Gillian's beauty and more an auction, it seemed. Yeah, I mentioned that she's supposed to be affianced, but it's so brief. I can still play with it going on. I can help. A strange ripple moved through the crowd. The music stumbled. A sudden discordant note from every corner of the hall. Past the puffed-up politician sweating through his finery, Gillian saw him. A tall figure, draped in a dark cloak, glided lazily through the crowd. He moved like water, weaving, never rushed, as if the festivities parted to accommodate him. He was striking. Even hunched, he stood a head taller than the other guests. Long, dark, blackish hair draped loosely down his back. But what caught Gillian's breath were the ears, pointed, distinct, cutting clean triangles through the mess. She gasped. A high elf? But no, something was off. His presence lacked the polish described in her books. His clothes were worn, his chest was bare, red trousers tattered at the hem, and wide, bare feet that padded silently across the marble like some great beast. He plucked food from plates with a casual indifference, enjoying snippets of dances, only to drift away before the steps were complete. Gillian studied him, mesmerized. His narrow eyes scanned the room, not with judgment, but disinterest. They passed over brocade and gems like weeds in a field. Then he looked at her, just for a breath, and her heart leapt in her chest like an excited puppy. His steely gaze pierced her, saw her, and moved on with a flick of one thin brow. The politician beside her reddened at being ignored, puffed in outrage, until he turned and truly saw the stranger. He blanched. By the Maker, he whispered, it's a Nephilim. What on earth is one doing here of all places, the queen asked, her silky smooth composure starting to ruffle, and at this time? The king, a short, once round man, who now appeared drained of his juice like a grape withering on the vine, balked and sought his words carefully before speaking oafishly. Perhaps it is a blessing, my queen. Fool, the queen snapped. Why would a member of the divine race bless any kingdom loyal to Morrigan? With that, the king, lord of the land, bit his tongue and stifled his voice. Gillian had watched her once happy, beaming father wither under the cold looks from the queen. He had lost his voice years ago, and now he existed as a symbol of his once greatness. The high elf strode forward with indifference, his eyes darting the rafters, as if following some invisible quarry the way a cat does. He loomed over the three figures, king, queen, and politician, and yet had not ascended the stairs. In his shadow they instinctively cowered. The queen quickly unfroze and composed herself enough to direct a comment to the pale, aloof guest. "And by what great fortune of happenchance do we owe the honor of your presence?" His eyes darted down to her for an instant, and he again flicked his brow, this time in a look of obvious disgust. "Why do you look so sticky?" he asked the queen before turning his gaze back up toward the ceiling like he had no interest in her reply. Gillian, despite herself, laughed. Not a long laugh, not a happy laugh, but a sudden burst, a bolt of laughter that ruptured out from some part long since forgotten. The queen snapped back with an expression that told Gillian the woman's carefully produced mask had been instantly shattered. The princess felt an ice-cold terror start to crawl up her legs as she braced for what insult or injury was to follow. Drippy coffee lid. As the tall figure took his first step onto the stage, he passed over the 3 steps in a single movement and rose up to block the light from above, in the sight of the crowd. Before her, Gillian saw only this tall, casually intimidating figure casting a dark shadow over all that had terrified her for so long. He maintained his indifference by fixing his gaze tightly to the back wall and tilting his head in contemplation. The politician panicked and dove off the side of the stage before scrambling on all fours to hide underneath it. The queen's menacing rabbit expression was unrestrained as she wheeled back to the pale figure above her. In the silence, the deflated monarch found his weak and faltering voice. "It is nice to see a noble elf again." At the word noble, the stranger glanced down at the shell of a man, and Gillian noted a pitying look passed over the smooth, unblemished features. His eyes then flashed back to Gillian, and his gaze hardened into dark blue razors that caught the light and held it like a dagger to her throat. She felt exposed, bare, as if for the first time someone didn't see the princess at all that she was supposed to be, and instead someone, for once, was seeing the girl. Gillian's breath caught in her chest. Her throat tightened, not from fear, not entirely, but from some unnameable pressure inside of her that had no place to go. No one had ever looked at her like that, like she was real. The crowd buzzed faintly behind her, faintly behind him, voices muttering in disbelief, but it all seemed to come from far away. His face tightened into a beautiful scowl as he muttered, "You don't belong here anymore." "Oh, dude, Jost would not be shaken in the voice. You gotta deliver that line better." That's not how he would say it. His face tightened into a beautiful scowl as he muttered, "You don't belong here anymore." Better. He glanced at the queen again with casual dismissal before turning back and facing the crowd. Gillian noted his cloak was a long, tattered jacket, with the sleeves missing as the tail of it snapped at the queen. With this second assault to her ego, she snapped, her rage now on display for the court to see. "Guards!" she ordered in a tense, raised claw. "Seize him! Do not let him disrupt the ritual!" The words echoed through the hall like a stone dropped in still water. But no one moved. The guards stood frozen, eyes flicking to one another, waiting for someone else to step forward first. The stranger didn't even flinch. He looked slowly from one guard to the next, his face unreadable, bored even, as if they were all background noise to some far more interesting thought. He sighed. "Still playing your little pageant," he said, and then to the whole room, "I know exactly who you vermin are. Now flee before me for my amusement." He spread his arms, not wide, but enough to show his empty hands. No sword, no weapon, and in doing so, twin flames ignited in his palms. A quiet gasp rippled through the crowd. Someone dropped a goblet. Without turning back or looking at Gillian, he spoke softly in a voice that struck harder than any assault by the queen. Don't worry, little bird, he murmured. You'll fly soon. Then, without another word, he stepped off the stage and seized an attendee by the throat with a flaming grasp. The dignitary choked and struggled before orange tendrils started to move through them from this contact point. Their smooth skin became haggard as their features twisted into something menacing and very afraid. The horrific transformation lasted for a moment before the once noble attendee burst into flame completely and then fell into a pile of ash. Some shock. The stunned shock that struck the room. The stunned shock that struck the room displaced time itself and suspended that moment into an eternity. As the vagrant elf white ash covered palm on his jacket, a scream from somewhere shattered the stillness. Under all the pomp and swagger, the decadent designs, under all the pomp and swagger, decadent designs, and the polished luster. Something had been released. Something primal and filthy that had been living in the hearts of so many. Called noble. my palms sweating as I'm writing this? Is it just my laptop, or is it just? Because this is doing what writing is supposed to do. It's supposed to bring something out of you. Art is supposed to be a catharsis for the artist and a catharsis, hopefully, for those who witness it. And doing this while streaming just keeps me from getting too distracted. So, I don't know why I gotta stream it to multiple spots, but I do. And that's what I'm doing. Because, what if I don't? What if I don't finish it? What if this doesn't get out? What if the digital version of me working on it is what it only ever becomes? Well, then it's out there, huh? Technically, I think this is publishing as I'm writing, which is either brilliant or incredibly stupid. Let's keep going. That's wicked transformation was not contained to this first victim. This transmogrification. Damn it! Thought I'd get that one right. It's transmogrification. Oh, is that? Do I just need to put in one? Let's see, one letter. One letter off. All right. I'm a smarty every day. This transmogrification. Why not rhyme when you can? Spread like a contagion. This transmogrification spread like a contagion. And instantly infected. This transmogrification spread like a contagion and instantly infected those most decorated. And revered. Great. Target in St. Paul is looking for individuals like me. Fuck Target. I worked for Target. I don't want to work for Target again. Unless it's corporate, and I can't get a job working for Target corporate because no. Yeah, they're not really good about hiring people over the age of 35. They want to hire a bunch of young idiots who create awful looking fucking graphics and then blame the LGBT community because their sales drop. Anyways. Minimize that. And window. Bam. Bring up the chat. Let's go to previous conversations because we've already covered this. What can I help you with today? Time travel. I need time travel very, very badly. That's what I need. Anything other than that, well, editing, I guess, but time travel. Time travel would be the shit. All right. Um, use ChatGPT for every search. All right. So I'm gonna, I think I want to use the latest conversation that I had about this. Bam. Okay. Now I'm just gonna pop the whole thing in. So long it won't let me. So this will get me going. Super Recruiter alerts. Soylent may hire you, teacher of the visually impaired. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a teaching degree. So many other fields I could have gotten into. Oh well, see. But I wanted to be an artist. Alright. Control V. And let's see what ChatGPT says to stroke my ego. Excellent continuation. The transition into chapter 2 hits hard. You're elevating the story's stakes while unmasking the court for what it truly is. A den of corruption in silk gloves. Wow, I'm going to be using silk gloves coming up now, thanks. The Nephilim's act isn't just a disruption, it's a revelation, an unveiling of rot under the regal lacquer. Let me continue in that spirit, preserving your tone and rhythm and deepening the impact. I don't know if I like that. Oh, you know what? I was going to be like, fuck this, don't write for me, ChatGPT, but I'm seeing some points. Like, I've loaded a lot of notes into the AI trying to explain what I'm trying to do, and it's figuring some stuff out, I guess. So let's see what ChatGPT says, and let's see what I actually end up writing. They were not just ignited, they were unveiled. What looked like nobility melted away with every flicker of firelight. Well, it sounds like it's thinking he's still lighting him on fire. I'm trying to show him like a different transition. Metal's wings, powdered faces began to smolder and fall away, revealing skin that was gray, cracked, or scaled beneath. One lord, previously the picture of opulence, shrieked as his face peeled in two directions, revealing a horned snout snarling underneath. Fuck. I do like what it's doing. It's adding a level of variety and depth I wasn't going to do. Shit. Another gasp, but the gasp curdled into a growl as a second set of teeth broke free from his cheek, curling into a jagged smile that did not belong to any man. He lunged blindly, not at the Nephilim, but at a fellow guest, raking sharp claws through a velvet coat to tear at flesh beneath. Then came the panic. Yeah, it's got the vibe. It really, really does. It's got the vibe. The enchantment of order shattered, and screams bloomed across the ballroom like fire flowers. Nobles ran in every direction, not from the stranger, but from each other. Friends turned on friends. Masks crumbled to reveal monstrous truths, and Jillian watched, frozen on the stage, as chaos bloomed in perfect grotesque symmetry. Only the queen remained still, her eyes wide and impossibly blue, locked onto the Nephilim with a venomous mixture of fear and recognition. Her clawed hand trembled now, not from anger, but something more ancient. You, she hissed, backing away one step. You should not exist. You were sealed. The Nephilim cocked his head at her, expression unreadable. You remember, he said quietly. That means you're old enough to rot properly. He took a single step forward. The queen shrieked and flung a hand toward him, not to strike, but to cast. Her fingers erupted in black flame, not the warmth of fire, but the brittle, dry heat of decay. The spell flew from her hand, a shrieking lance of rot. The Nephilim caught it. His left hand, still glowing faintly, closed around the withering magic. The black fire sizzled and smoked in his palm until he squeezed it, and it vanished like a dying ember. Cute, he muttered. Try that again, and I'll unmake your soul. The queen stumbled back, but behind her, the king was crumpled on the floor, not from attack, but sheer collapse. His withered form wheezed for breath, a puppet whose strings had all been cut. Even now, he looked to the Queen for permission to faint. Jillian couldn't move. She couldn't blink. Her body was stone, but her mind raced like a bird in a cage. The flames, the monsters, the screams, the peeling skins, none of it made sense. But what terrified her most was that some part of her expected it, as if a crack inside her had just split wide open, and the truth she'd spent a lifetime suppressing had begun to seep out like the light from a long buried lantern. She turned her head, and the Nephilim was looking at her again. His expression softened, just a hair, enough to carve out something unfamiliar in his otherwise sharp face. Concern. "Are you all right, little bird?" he asked, not loudly, but the words found her like arrows find their mark. Jillian opened her mouth, then closed it. What are they?" she managed to whisper, voice shaking. "What did you do to them?" He tilted his head again, as if surprised by the question. "I didn't do anything." "God damn. I didn't do anything," he said. "I just stopped pretending." It's really scary, this AI thing. Um, I've been working with ChatGPT since it came out, and like the first thing that I did was start writing a book of demonic poetry, because everyone was like, "There's a demon in the machine." So I'm like, all right, let's see what it can do. Because if poetry is the devil's wine, then a poetry book from hell would be a really, really interesting read. And since then, I've just been playing with it. I've been popping in science and writing ideas and everything, just all kinds of conversations. And it feels like this last section that it just produced is it's getting better. It's picking me up. It's kind of got my style down quite a bit. I didn't expect this to come out this good. I really, really didn't. This is so much better than I anticipated ChatGPT to ever be able to do. This is frightening. This is frightening. So I am going to copy paste this whole section. I can't think of. Yeah, that bothers me a little bit, that I can't think of how I would make this better right now. So yeah, that's a total cheat. That is a total cheat. I really didn't think I would like anything that ChatGPT was going to pop out that much. I wasn't coffee. That was a tear. Salty. Oh, it hasn't even been an hour. Okay, I'm gonna take a little break because I see that. Mute this real quick. I see Blind Fate, one of my followers and someone that I follow, is streaming right now. So yeah, let's check this out. Normally I don't watch other people. I'm just caught up in my own stuff. So let's see what this Dead by Daylight is. This is tight. I've never seen this. I really like this. This is cool looking. I want to check this out. Let me figure out my audio because I guess I probably shouldn't be streaming while I'm doing this. That's a little rude. I'm gonna cut this off and I'm gonna check out what she's doing. If anybody is seeing this, let's check out Blind Fate for a second.